Okay, welcome. Happy Monday. Merry Christmas to everybody. Hope you're doing well. Today we're going to go through December's crypto tracing challenge, and I think this one was fairly difficult, I'm going to say. Not in terms of the complexity sometimes, but more so in terms of the rigor that's required for it. So the challenge was, let's see who can get furthest. Okay, so what I'm going to do, we're live on YouTube right now, but if you want to get involved and ask questions, I really recommend coming into Discord, where we've got the chat open. Feel free to ask any questions in there, and then we'll do our best to answer everything that comes up. So we're not going to be any more than an hour. In fact, we'll probably be quite a bit less than that and allow the opportunity for questions. So hopefully everything's good. Can everybody in Discord, can you hear me okay? Just give me a hello or something like that in chat, and then we'll make a start. Okay, sound is good. That's good because I've had some technical issues in the past. All right, let's take a look at this case. So for those in Discord, I'm going to share my screen. For those on YouTube, you'll be able to see my screen anyway, so it's all good. All right. So here is the initial set of transactions. Okay, there's actually two here. They're just hidden. This is a tool called MetaSleuth. This is a tool that I use to visualize traces for victims or clients, depending on who it is. Now, in MetaSleuth, and by the way, you did not need to use MetaSleuth for this particular challenge. I'm just using it because it's nice and visual and people can see the chart as we build it, right? So it will make more sense when we're looking at it. Now, what we'll do is when we finish this chart today, I'll share this chart with you if you want to go and check your own notes for those who carried out the challenge in December. Please go ahead. You're more than welcome to. I'll talk to you about different areas where people struggled and some areas where people excelled as well. So we'll go into quite some detail. All right, so first things first, like what do we do? So the first thing is obviously we've got 29.3 Ether that's been moved across to this account here, this OX5291, okay, under two transactions, one for 1.52 ETH and one for 27.77. Now, in this example, we're going to make some assumptions, okay? We're going to say that the assets have already been stolen, okay? My recommendation, if anyone's doing any tracing, is labeling. And if you're using something like MetaSleuth, use color as well. So let's give it some names. Let's call this December Challenge Attacker 1. Okay, and then for the next one, we're going to call it December Challenge Attacker 2. We'll keep it simple. And for bad actors and things like that, hackers or whoever it might be, I like to use the color red. Okay, so we'll add some labels, call this number 2, and we'll go like that. Now, one of the benefits about MetaSleuth is that once you've finished, not only can you download a huge image, it's like 17 megabytes, massive. In fact, I think it's even bigger than that. You can also download the CSV data as well. And what that means is that there's two transactions here. If I click download the CSV data, it's going to show me row by row each of the transactions from and to, the asset amounts, the value amounts, and things like that. So it's good. Yeah, I really recommend that. All right, so like I said, you don't need to use MetaSleuth for this challenge. I'm going to do a little bit of demoing on it. I have no affiliation with MetaSleuth, although I do have a discount code if anyone wants to use it, 10% off. Intelligence on chain, all one word, no spaces. All right, so we start off nice and simple here. Okay, we've got related addresses. So each distinct address is shown here. Then we have transfers. First thing that we should always do is put everything in order. Okay, and I always like descending, so the newest transaction is first, right at the top there. The oldest is down at the bottom. So we can see our 2 transactions coming in, okay? And then we can see that some assets get sent out to deBridge Finance, okay? And we can basically say that that's all of the assets that were stolen have gone into this one. So it's a fairly straightforward bridging transactions, fairly straightforward at this moment in time in terms of the custody of those assets. So we can show this one as well. So we'll add it to the canvas. What that looks like on Etherscan is that we get the 2 transactions coming in, okay, 1.52, 27.7, and then we see that it goes out to deBridge, 29.01 ETH. So what do we do here? I'm asking those live in Discord if you can share your opinion on what you think would happen. Yeah, the screen is quite small. I'll try to zoom in. Okay, I'll zoom in a little bit more. Probably help those on YouTube as well. So we're on deBridge. What do we do next? Any ideas? I do share quite often a top tip, which is to do with anything bridge related. But I'm just wondering if anyone can guess that first. See someone type in. All right. Well, let me zoom in so we can see the numbers and see the charts. Whenever you see something like this, the first thing that I would do is check the transaction history. And it sounds like I've just got a delivery. Crazy timing. Give me 1 second, please. I knew that would happen. So sorry about that. It's Christmas time. Parcels coming all the time. What have you. Anyway, we're back. So first thing I would recommend is check out the transaction. What can we see from the transaction? You know, sometimes we've got some really important information here. Sometimes in this more details, we can click to show more and it might show us some info, right? So we've got a bunch of information here, none of which makes too much sense to us, I don't think at this time. Receiver destination, we probably have that, but you'll see in a moment why that's probably not as accurate as we want. We probably want to check the logs as well, make sure there's nothing here that's obvious and standing out. But yeah, so we've got this transaction, it goes over a bridge. And so my question, well, actually we've got a question in chat. It says bridges can indicate a red flag. It depends. Yeah, I get, well, not necessarily. I mean, bridges are legitimate services, right? So if you want to take some assets from Ethereum and put it onto BSC, you just bridge it, right? So it's a legitimate service. It could mean that the attackers try, if it is an attacker that you're tracing, which we're assuming it is in this case, it could be that they're trying to obfuscate their tracks. Yes. All right. So when we get to this deBridge, and it tells us on Etherscan it's deBridge. Okay, so the first thing that I do is Google deBridge. Do this with any bridge, and then the word Explorer. Okay, deBridge Explorer. If it's wormhole, wormhole Explorer. Okay, so whatever the bridge is, plus the word Explorer. That's going to bring you to this Explorer here. Okay, now this Explorer is a little bit, I think the UI could do with some improvement. It's not so obvious where to put it, right? But what we have down here at the bottom is we have an area that we could put the address, the transaction, things like that. Okay, so down at the bottom, we're going to see a bunch of different transactions, but these are the latest ones. We want ours. Okay, so what do you think's best? Is it best to put in the address here, or is it best to put in the transaction here? What do you think? The address or the transaction? Well, the transaction's more specific, right? It's whilst you could put in an address, that address may have 20 sets of bridges, so you may have to go, you know, sifting through some of those transactions. But if you've got the transaction hash, there's only one thing that can, there's only one transaction with that, right? So let's put that in. Let's put that into here. See what comes up. So I was talking to a boring security sleuthing class. For those who are interested, there's a free sleuthing class that we put on. The next one's in February, I think, in boring security. You can access it from the website. It's completely free. And she got stuck on one of the questions, and it was around bridges. Okay. Now, as we saw in this example, the bridge transaction on Etherscan didn't yield too much information for us, at least none that makes sense to the layman, right? So what we can do when we go to these bridge explorers, they show you the specific assets on the receiving end and the outflow end, okay, from a deBridge perspective. So what we can do then is we can click on the transaction and it's going to give you the full breakdown. Okay. Couple of things to note here is that you've got your maker. So your maker on the left hand side is the person who initiated the transaction. You have a bunch of things on the right hand side, but the most important is the receiver address, okay, which is this one. All right, so I'm just going to copy this. Now we could go to SolScan, which is the Solana Explorer. So again, you could go, I'm pretty sure everyone uses SolScan, but maybe not. I think for this particular challenge, SolScan is probably a better one to use because it's a little bit more visual than some of the others out there. All right, so this is the transaction. Let me know in the chat there if you've ever sleuthed on Solana before, and what are your thoughts? What are your opinions on Solana as a blockchain, sleuthing through it? Because it is a little bit more different. It's a completely different way that the blockchain's set up with your different token accounts and things like that. But yeah, has anyone got any experience sleuthing on Solana? Okay, so we've got our address. I'll wait for those answers in chat. We've got our address, right? So now we need to find it, right, in here. Where I recommend to go is the transfers tab. And you do not want to sift through 14 pages worth of data, okay? So my recommendation is to show 100 per page, which brings that down to two pages, okay? We need to go to the second page. And for those in Discord, I'll give you this in chat. There you go, feel free to join along. Oh, I can't. Our security's kicked it out. Kicked off, booted the link. There you go. All right, you'd have to copy that, put in the HTTPS at the start, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we can see that, right? We can see deBridge coming in 394 Sol. Okay, about $94,000. All right, so this gives us a start. Okay, and then the reason why I say that SolScan's a little bit easier to use in this particular trace is because of these colors here, right? These create counts, close accounts, and things like that. Just so you're aware, if you send assets to a new address, it will create the account, okay? If you send all of the assets from an address, so there's no assets left in that address, it closes the account, okay? Specific by token. So one thing to notice is on the left hand side you've got your transaction hashes. Okay, notice how when I hover over one of them it shows 6 different lines. Okay, and if you look in those lines there's a lot of things happening. Minus 394, minus 394, plus 5397, plus 1000. You know, there's a lot of things. Oh, sorry, that plus 1000 is not in that transaction. There's a lot of things happening, right? So let's just take a look at the transaction itself. Okay, so we break this down. We'll look at it, and you know, I think for most people, if you're quite new to Solana, it won't make that much sense to you in terms of what's going on here. Okay, and there's a tool that can help you with that. The tool is completely free. It's one that I have it installed on my browser extensions. It's called MetaSleuth. Now, we talk about this in our free sleuthing class, MetaSleuth. There we go. Okay, so you can get started. It's free. It just gives you additional information on your screen. And in this case, why that's so important is because you see this little icon to the right hand side. Okay, that's a tool called Phalcon. So when I click on Phalcon for this transaction, what it does is it shows me visually what's happening within that transaction. Okay, so we scroll down and we just make the picture bigger. And I know it's going to be a struggle to see this, so let me try to zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so here is our address. We can see that they sent out, and these transactions are in order, by the way. So 1 to 394 comes in. You could go research this address, just put it in Google and some double quotes, and it'll tell you what entity it is. Then you can see there's a fee that's being paid, okay, something like this. Then it goes to wrapped Solana. Okay, so wrapped Solana goes into Meteora, and then on the back end we get 5393 of this token here. Okay, so 6p 6x. So basically this is a swap. Okay, and because it goes between Solana, wrapped Solana, and this token, and then you got fee in there, all of those things show as slightly different events on SolScan. Okay, so this Phalcon Explorer really just visualizes that. So what we're interested in is that 394 Sol goes in, and the 5397 comes out. Okay, so let's find out what that 5397 is. We go to back to Solana, and we're looking for 5397. Okay. There it is, that line there. So it looks as though the attacker has bridged to Solana, and the first thing that he's done is he's traded it for Trump token. Okay, that's the first thing. Then as we move up the screen, you'll find that there's all sorts happening, right? And as an investigator, you'll look at this and you go, oh my god, there's so much to go through here. But because there's like these are in blocks, it's actually not too hard to follow. You know, once you get used to seeing these transactions, what you'll see is that, okay, he traded these Trump tokens here back for wrapped Solana. Okay, WSOL there. So look at that. He started with 394 Sol, which was then wrapped before being traded with Trump. And then he's, what's that? Quadrupled? Nearly? No, tripled. Yeah, it's it's just over tripled his Solana balance. Okay. And now it's at $373,000. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Okay. So 394 was the original amount, the stolen amount, and he's now traded it to 1,321 Sol. Okay. So we've got to bear that in mind. If we're taking this case to court, then Jesus, more deliveries. Right, bear with me 1 second. Well, I'm never going to do one of these podcasts around Christmas again. Sorry about that. That's not even mine. It's for next door. So, yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so I have an interesting question for you here. The attacker's made profit. So what do we follow now? Like what, if he splits this up in let's say 3 different ways, what do we do? Any ideas? And by the way, this is where you're going to have to refer to probably some case law at some point. I think that will definitely be worthwhile. Yeah, so I think as an investigator, you're going to be tracking each one of those, right? Because you need to provide the full picture of what's going on, but it still needs to be specific enough. Now, when I've done some research on case law, according to scenarios like this, where profits are made with the stolen assets, depending on jurisdiction, depending on, you know, the scenario, it could be that the victim, the original victim, would be entitled to the uplift of that property if it can be proven that their stolen assets were transferred here in a suitable manner, and then those assets were transferred into something else, the profit was made, the victim still has claim to those assets even though they've increased in value. Now, if there's accumulation involved, where there's different assets coming in from different places that are not related to the victim, the courts won't favor that original item that I said, because they'll want other victims to have a fair share, right? So it will be, you know, dependent on each individual case. But yeah, and so for us, whilst there's been a big increase here from 394 to 1321, I think we still have to follow this 1321. Okay, so let's do exactly that. So we've got another block here. Okay, we can see that it started off with Solana. There's a wrapped Solana here, so he's probably wrapped it, swapped it into this USDC here, so he's gone into a stable coin. Let's just take a look at Phalcon anyway, because that will confirm it for us. Okay, so what we've got here is we've got the 1321 Sol going in. Okay, we've got the wrap Solana coming down here, and then the USD coin coming back out. There's a whole load of different swaps here between different pools. This is just automation. Okay, there's nothing that the user would do at that point, but there will be some fees and things. Like here's the fees again. But yeah, the long and the short of it is that they receive USD coin back out. Okay. All right, so let's go back. So we're now following the USDC, the $355,000. Okay. So we go through, we're looking at our transaction hashes. We have one individual one here, 1.22 Solana, $333. Now at this point, it's a different asset because that could be related to ours. We haven't traced that and we're not going to for the purpose of this exercise. But it could be completely unrelated. Okay, if it starts to get if it starts to become unrelated, then we really have to apply strict procedures when we're tracing our assets to not mix up things like first in, first out, last in, first out, you know, that sort of thing. So what happens next? So we've got an individual transaction by itself, it's a receive, then we've got a 0.02 Solana out to 9A8. Okay, so some form of gas is being sent to this address. We don't know the context, but we could make that assumption, I think, at this point. We keep scrolling, another block. What's happening here? We've got $100,000, well, 99.6, and that's being swapped for Rapsol into the Melania meme coin. Okay, that's that one. What's happening next? So now we're following the USDC minus the 99,600 plus the Melania at this point. Okay, What's happening here? We've got a swap. They have swapped another 9,960 with Melania. So again, you need to take note of all of these different transactions. One tool that I recommend people to use to scrape this data is a tool called Instant Data Scraper. You can just Google it. It's available on the Chrome Web Store, okay? And it's this little Pokeball here. No idea how they've got away with it. But you would start that and you would just tell it what you want to scrape data-wise, and it will scrape anything that's on your screen, okay? Really cool tool. It will copy the links, the addresses, the transaction hashes, the amounts, token amounts, the token type, things like that. So that's a good way of grabbing the data. But often you'll find that there's a export CSV data, export CSV, just there, look. So it depends. There's a few different ways of doing that. All right, but now we continue to trace what's happening. Okay, we keep looking at these blocks of transactions on the left. We're looking at this one. We've got another 0.5 sol that's gone out to this 988 address. That's come up a couple of times. Then we continue. So, okay, more USD is being swapped for Melania. More USD is being swapped for Trump. What's happening here? This is, let's take a look. Looks like this one might go on to the next page as well. So let's just take a quick look on Phalcon. But essentially all we've had right now is a bunch of trades into meme coins and a couple of offshoots that go to a different address that looks like gas for something. Okay. All right, looks like what's happening here. So, okay, funky transaction. Okay, 391 USD. Okay, so it looks like there's a swap to a different address. Okay, fine. All right, so let's go back here. Let's go back to our page 1. So we haven't reviewed these yet, but essentially we're just going to follow that same methodology real quick. Okay, we'll go through right from the bottom. Okay, so what's happening here? We are using USDC to swap it for Solana. Okay, can you see that? USDC out, Solana in. Next, we have another send out, this time of 9 Solana to 988. Okay, so I think this address is becoming of interest. And we may choose to add that to our trace. Okay, let's quickly update our chart. Let's just go back and make sure that we've captured everything that we need to capture on the chart. Okay, so we can visually follow this. Okay, so I'm just going to add the address. I'm going to go Solana, add that in. Now this is okay. What happens is that it moves it first. On MetaSleuth, you have the option of moving nodes. Okay, so I'm just going to put that after. I like to try to keep the asset flow on the same line, like in the middle of the screen as we're showing now. So what we would need to do is show that initial bridge in. Okay, so we search all transactions, we put it in ascending order. This is the initial one. Okay, cool. So we've got 2 deBridge finance. Now remember at the start I said I like to color. Okay, and the reason why I like to do that is because it's much easier to see when you come back to it in 6 months time. Okay, I'm coloring these white. I'm treating them like a smart contract. I always color smart contracts white because this is an innocent party here. This is an entity that's just it's an exchange, essentially a bridge that allows you to swap from one asset to another. Okay, but we need to show that transfer, right? The other thing that you might do on something like MetaSleuth is you can color the lines as well. So if you're going down a particular path, you might choose one color for that particular path. We only have one path right now, so maybe we just keep it as it is. Then what else have we seen here? We've got that 988 address, right? So let's find that, because we know that there's a few little transactions that go out to that address. But besides that, everything else that we've seen so far is meme coin trades. So I'm just going to move this out of the way because whilst it might be related, it's not our main path of funds. Okay. And by the way, if you wanted to, you could show all of the meme coin trades here. Okay. In MetaSleuth, you will see that you've got the same transactions. Okay. They're blocked together. If I wanted to show this Trump trade, I would probably show the Solana 394 out and the 5397 Trump coin in. Okay, so these again are smart contracts, right? These two addresses that have been added. So it looks like Meteora. So let's just add some labels as well, because otherwise we'll get confused. So Meteora. And I'm just going to put Dex so we don't get confused. That other one's labeled, but I'm going to color these white again because they're smart contracts. Okay, so again, I'm pretty confident if we was to come back to this in let's say 6 months time, we would probably be very comfortable looking at this. Again, I'm going to move these out of the way. But we do want to show maybe the swaps, especially if we're going to be handing this information over and it's going to be analyzed by the courts. We want to show these different swaps. We want to show the different transaction hashes and things like that. Okay, so so now we need to find out, okay, after all of those swaps, and I'm not going to show all of the swaps on here because we'll be here forever and a day. And we've only got another sort of 15 minutes left. Okay, so and then we'll get into Q&A. But this is how I would show it. And, you know, if you wanted to, maybe you color these a slightly different color just to show that they're not part of the asset flow out. Okay. And what I mean by that is this 394 is changing to 1000 something. That's what we want to show. That's where we want to have the emphasis. Okay. So let's go back. Let's check out what else is going on. Let's look for some big transactions out. In fact, you know what I'll do is let's just take a look at some of the filtering options here on SolScan because this will help us. Now, if you was to go through this case step by step, you'll go through each one of those trades, you'll understand what's happened. But essentially, this guy has made money on meme coins. The filters at the top are relatively simple. If you wanted to see all of the Sol transactions, you just click that Sol filter button there. If you want to see any token transactions only, you would see that. You would click this SPL one. Okay, so these are you won't see any Sol transactions here. You will see wrap Sol, but not Solana. Okay, so you could just go through, just see what coins are being traded and whatnot. And the other thing that you could do is, and I'm going to leave it on all, by the way, I just wanted to show that you could see outflows or inflows only. Okay, so if you go outflows, okay, you can now just see all of the transactions that go out of this wallet. You got lots of filters here. So if you wanted to go, I don't know, let's go, let's have a look at 100K plus. All right, so we can see a bunch of these Meteora ones. These look like straight trades, right? There's probably one here, this 85DS. I'm interested in, like, when did that happen? Let's maybe take a look at that. And then the top one there that we saw a moment ago, the 369 out. That is where we're going to be looking next. Okay, so 1 second. Right, so let's just take a quick look at this on Phalcon, see what this is. If this is another swap, then it should be fine. Okay, so yeah, it's another swap. Okay, so they're sending Solana out. Okay, fine, it's another swap. So we're looking for transfers rather than a swap, and this looks like the only big transfer out right now. And I know this because I've already done the case, right? But this is the address where these assets go to next. Okay, so we would add this into our chart. Okay, we would click on this node here and filter for our address. And there you go. We can see the US dollars and we can see some Solana gas. So let's add those. All right, so we would color, we would label again. Again, I recommend just following these same principles all the time. If you're using a tool like MetaSleuth, use it to its maximum advantage or to your maximum advantage, and label things and color things. You believe me, you'll appreciate it later. So let's call this December attacker. I think we're on number 3 now. Actually, call number 3 is fine. So what happens then? We can come to this wallet, click load data. Now MetaSleuth, they do have, I think, some indexing issues. So here it says 4 out of 5 transactions are being retrieved. Well, what's that other transaction? You know, as an investigator, you need to be able to see all of the transactions. And this is why, if we're using free or low cost tools to do investigations, you need to use multiple tools, I think, to do it. But essentially, we'll put this into order and we'll see, I'll just zoom in a little bit there. We'll see that the assets come in, and then there is a transaction, a single transaction. Okay, so let's show that. Now, this wasn't originally labeled, okay, this address here. So if you get an address that's not labeled, Google it, put it in Arkham, use Spectra, whatever you need to do to find out what this address is, because this could be, it's USDC right now, but if this was Solana, maybe this could be a different related attacker address, right? But having done the research, I'm pretty comfortable that that is deBridge fees, okay? The other side of the transaction comes down here. Now you can see this is where we're starting to get mixed up on our chart. So there's lots of transactions showing on the screen right now. What we would want to do is just make sure that we're showing our path, so that when we come back to it in 6 months' time, we can easily pick it up and we can deep dive and know what's happening pretty quickly. Okay, so I'm showing the 394. There's a profit on that. It goes up to 369, and then it comes back down here and it is bridged. Okay, minus the fees that we just saw. Okay, so it's just like a big loop that comes around. So what happens now? Well, right now we would, and by the way, this label here was not also there. It's one that I created. But again, if you just use Google, if Google doesn't work, you can use Arkham. There you go, look, deBridge Vault. Okay, there's an Arkham link for it there. So Google is a really good friend when you're investigating. So we go back to deBridge Explorer, right? That's exactly what we did last time. So we'll take this attacker address and we'll go to deBridge and get rid of the old stuff, put that in, and see what comes up. Okay, no entries found there. By the way, this sometimes happens. So let's take the transaction hash. Let's put that into there. Okay, doesn't seem to be working either. So what we can do is just make sure that we capture, well, maybe I didn't copy the address right, 1 second. If this doesn't work, what we'll do is we'll go to the address before and just check that if there's a transaction that's shown there as well, but this should work. Just going to hit refresh. Okay, so what we have is we'll just need to check we've got the right things on SolScan. So it goes out. Let's just double check on transfers. Let's see what we've got. It goes out to the, so 2SN is the deBridge itself. Let's just check. Let's check what this is in Arkham. That's the issue, you see. And this is why you need to use multiple tools to show the bridge, right? Or to show different, find different information out about different scenarios. Because what we was assuming then, looking at our chart, that this 2S4 was the attacker. Okay, that's what we was assuming. However, that if you was to give that information to deBridge or to law enforcement or whatever, it would be wrong. Okay, it would be absolutely wrong. The 2S4 belongs to deBridge. Okay, it's a deposit address that's used for bridging. Okay, that's what it seems to be, at least, but it is related to deBridge. So what that means is that we need to go back to the transaction before. We need to go back to this address here and try that. Okay, great. So let's just check the dates. Let's check the times. So we've got 21st of January 2025, 03:53 in the morning. 03:53 in the morning. Okay, great. It gets sent from Solana across to Ethereum, goes to DAI. Okay, DAI is a stable coin that's decentralized. There's no freezing it. There's no blacklisting or anything like that that you can do. Okay, so here's the transaction. Here is the maker. Remember, the maker is the important address, and then the receiver is the also the outgoing important address as well. So if we take this address and we add that to our chart, okay, so need to add that over there. Actually, it's interesting because let me get rid of these first, because I did this earlier and I think that's why it's picked it up. 1 second. Okay, when I did this earlier, earlier in the month, this is how it initially came, right? It just shows you this address here, and what I would do then is just show the bridging in, right? That's it. Just I want to see the DAI come in. Okay, remember, you're looking at the dates, you're looking at the values, and you've got to go find the DAI. That's our job right now. Okay, so 299, ours was 3. Is it 3? Go back to the dates. 368, and that was on, I think I said the 21st of Jan. Okay, so 21st of Jan. 368, there we go. That's our transaction. Okay, specifically our transaction for this trace. And that's one mistake that I see people using, people doing. Sometimes you show too many transactions. Okay, I think that the best way that served me is to show only the relevant transactions. Okay, so what I would do is, we know that that's DSwap. Okay, we can maybe move this fees address out of the way because that is a fee. We also need to rename because this is deBridge deposit address, right? We do not want to subpoena that address because we'll get nothing back and it will be a complete waste of time for law enforcement, lawyers, whoever. Okay, so that's now colored. It's now labeled. We could probably get rid of that. Don't need to see that. But now the path of the assets is such that, and I'll probably add a little note here. Change the colors of the notes, and I can say that bridged from Solana to ETH, and then in brackets DAI. Okay, so that's that, and it just shows that we're continuing the trace to the right hand side, all in a single line, keeping everything nice and tidy as we do this. Okay, so we've got our DAI that comes in, and from here there's a whole bunch of things that happens. Okay, it goes in and out of different addresses and swaps for assets in different locations, and comes back to this address multiple times. Okay, so we're not going to cover all of that off today, but what I will do for those who participated in the challenge, I'm going through and I'm seeing who got the furthest with that, because there is quite a lot. Who got the furthest? Whoever got the furthest, and I'll announce the winner later this week before Christmas. will get the maximum points for the leaderboard. Okay, but this is one of the big areas where I found most people struggling throughout the case, is just following these assets through the bridges multiple times, following the assets through the trades, and ending up back where we are on Ethereum here. One final thing that I wanted to show you is that, you know, as soon as we start bridging and assets start swapping and things like that, there should be a question that's raised around, okay, so who owns those assets now? Is it the same person? Is it the same actor? Can we find any links to previous addresses? So what I recommend on all your cases, actually, not just this one, but I recommend taking this outcome address here, which is one of our attacker addresses, and using a tool like Arkham, okay, we'll put that into Arkham. It looks like Arkham's working today. I had a load of issues yesterday. Right, pain yesterday. And then go to the address beforehand as well, or, you know, maybe both addresses if you wanted to. Copy both of these addresses and put that into Arkham. So if you've been on any of my training courses or anything like that, you'll know how to use Arkham. I like to use the visualise tool, okay? And I'll add this second address in the top left here, okay? What's going to happen now is it's going to look for different transactions that relate to the two addresses that I put in. So you can see deBridge there on the right hand side. We know that because we've just traced it. And then this is the output address, but you can see how it is linked to the input address prior to the Solana blockchain, okay? They are linked by these transactions here. Okay, so if we wanted to show these transactions, we add them to the chart. And now we can see a clear line that shows connections to the original address, okay, the original attacker address. Now, I would probably just color this and say, look, it's not necessarily related to our attack, like our victims' funds, but it does show relationships. Okay. We'll color our notes to match our lines as well. Okay, and I think we'll leave it there. I think that, you know, there's more to go. There's more tracing where you can go in and out of different addresses. It ultimately comes back here and goes to various places. But I'll leave it there. Hopefully that was useful to understand how to trace through a couple of different blockchains backwards and forwards, and looking at Solana, looking at the different trades that happen, and understand what's going on. So with that in mind, I'll hand it over to you guys to ask any questions. Yeah, so Ripfin, you're talking about that original, the issue that we had with deBridge, right? This transaction here, we thought that this was the attacker, and this is exactly what I come up against when I did the trace initially. I'm like, how is this not showing up on deBridge? It doesn't make sense. It's because it's a deBridge associated address. The attacker doesn't own that address, and that is why it's critical to label and to color things on your chart, because you're going to get lost. Okay, you are on a trace like this one where there's lots of moving parts. You're going to get lost. All right, so yeah, label. Use tools, different tools to try to find attributions. Like you've got Arkham, you've got Mistrack, even our own tool Spectra searches across 5 different search engines at any one time, right? And that's what you want. You want to gather enough or more than enough information and be able to distill it down into you know, actionable results. So hopefully you enjoyed that. But yeah, let me take any other questions. Yeah, has anyone in the crowd got any questions relating to any of that? See Ripfin talking. Let me check if there's any on YouTube as well. All right. Okay, so we've got 9 minutes. If anyone's got any additional questions, I think what I'll do is I'll stop streaming now. So if you paid attention on the live stream, thank you very much. We're going to continue in Discord. And if you want to get into there, go to our website, go into the socials tab, and on our link tree, you'll see a button called the Bureau. You need to have an account older than 2 hours, and you need to change your Discord profile picture if it's a new account, because our security bots don't like it. If you're coming into Discord, I'll see you later, and thank you for spending the time joining us on this trace. Thank you. Bye-bye.